I've really been enjoying the Hope Hall online church services. And it was great just on Sunday there listening to the folks talking about what prayer means to them. And it got me thinking, and I thought about the aspect of honesty in prayer. A long time ago, there was a book written entitled Honest to God. I thought it was a great title. I read the book, but I honestly didn't think much of the book, but I thought it was a great title. Yeah, we always have to be honest with God when we pray. There's no point trying to hide anything from God because he knows all about us anyway. We read in Psalm 139, "O Lord, you've searched me and you know me. Before a word is on my tongue, you know it completely, O Lord." There's no point trying to put a front on with God the way that we do sometimes with people. We have to be honest with God. Now, it's been reported that during the pandemic, lots of people have been turning to prayer, and that's a really good thing. It's understandable because during periods of suffering, that's where people particularly tend to turn to prayer. Now, in the Bible, the classic story on the topic of suffering is the story of Job that you can read about in the Old Testament. Job went through a time of great suffering, and Job, in the things that he said to God and things that he said to his friends, was actually very honest. Now, the thing about Job was some of the things that he said in his kind of feelings, some of the things he said were right, but some of the things that he said and that he felt were not right. And that can be the case if we're honest with God in our prayers. And God is okay with us being honest with him and leveling with him and saying, "Look, God, this is how I feel about this situation." The Psalms is full of examples of somebody being honest to God and pouring out his heart, sometimes in great bitterness. So God is okay with us being honest with him. But our difficulty is that our knowledge is limited. We don't know all the ins and outs and all the whys and the wherefores and all the hidden motivations in people's hearts. We don't even know ourselves fully. Only God knows me fully. So in our honesty, we have to admit that our knowledge is limited, and sometimes some of the things we may express to God, some of them may be right, but some of them may not be right. And at the end of the book of Job, God gives Job a little bit of a telling off. He says to Job, "Who is this who obscures my counsel by words without knowledge?" That was Job's problem. He didn't really know the whole situation, and he spoke without knowledge. To Job's great credit, he repented in dust and ashes. But after that, God spoke very positively about Job to his friends. Job was an honest man, but God was really quite annoyed with his friends because his friends had been overly sanctimonious and self-righteous. They hadn't been really honest with God the way that Job had been. And God says to these three friends, he says, "I am angry with you because you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has." And then he asks Job to pray for his friends, and they're all reconciled, and things turn out well in the end. So as we're honest with God, and it's good to be honest with God, we need to be ready sometimes to accept God's rebuke and maybe to be corrected. That may come through reading a passage of the Bible and a particular verse strikes us in a particular way. It may be something that's said in a church service, or it may even be a thing that is said apparently by chance in conversation with somebody. But like Job, we need to be honest enough to admit that sometimes we get it wrong. So in our prayers, let's go on talking to God. Let's be honest with him. God is happy to hear our honest prayers. He's a gracious, a loving and kind and forgiving God.